Hello, this is a quick video to show you how to try and identify the mean and standard deviation on normal curves using this normal distribution simulation. Always remember to put your name in the name box for all of these. So we're going to click on the Identify tab, and it's going to show us always this exact same purple normal distribution or bell curve. Bell curves are also known as normal distributions. This purple one is referred to as the standard normal curve. We'll learn more about that in Chapter 6. And what you need to know about the standard normal curve is that it has a mean of 0 and a standard deviation of 1. And for symmetric curves, the mean is always at the point of symmetry, which for a normal curve is the peak. So notice if you drop down from there, you get 0. And then the standard deviation on this curve is 1. And what you need to do to identify the red curve is two things. One, think about where the peak is. So the peak on this curve is right about there. We've got these grid lines to help us try and figure out what number that is. So that's past -4, not quite to -5. So maybe that's like -5.8. -4.8, sorry, right? -4, not quite -5. So -4.8. So I'll type that in. And then for standard deviation, what you need to remember is that standard deviation measures how spread out a data set is. So if a data set is more spread out, like the red one is compared to purple, it'll have a bigger standard deviation. The purple has a standard deviation of 1, so the red one, being more spread out, must have a bigger standard deviation. There's a definite link between the height and the width of these. So what your eye might notice is that this is about half the height of the purple one. And what that means is that the red one, if it's half the height, is probably twice as spread out. So again, you got to know the standard deviation of this one, and that's 1. If we think the red one is half the height and then therefore twice as spread out, we would put it 2 as our guess for the standard deviation. And then I'll click on Guess, and it'll draw a green curve, which is based on my numbers. And it says there's too much error, and that's because my green curve is a little too high. I think we did okay on the peak. We might have overshot it a tiny bit. If you look here, you can see the green is to the left of the red. So we might have gone too far. Not much, though. I'm going to try changing this to -4.75, which will move the peak a tiny bit to the right. And then I want the green curve to get lower. But this doesn't measure height. It measures spread. So if I want the green curve to go a little lower, what I really want is for it to get a little wider. Not a lot wider, just a little. So I'm going to change that from 2 to 2.1. A bigger number for standard deviation means that the data set and therefore the curve will be more spread out, and that'll make it shorter. So let me click Guess. And that's what you want to see, where the two curves seem to be blending together. And when you see that, you should see this as well. Nice job, refine if you wish. No thanks, I'm happy with this one. So I could do a Alt print screen to capture this. Just some reminders on that. When you hit Alt, you'll probably have your graph disappear. In fact, I'll just do that for you. Here goes the Alt, and there goes the graph, right? Which is disappointing after you work so hard to make it match up nice. Just click on Refresh, and it'll draw it all again. And when I do Alt the next time, oh, kind of unlucky if it disappears twice, but it just happened. So I'll hit Refresh again. And Alt the third time, okay, we're good. And now I could do Alt print screen, capture this, and move it over to my report. However, I think it's nice to know what the right answers were. So even if you don't want to mess with this because you think you've done a great job already, just leave your numbers alone and click Guess again. You get 3 tries at it. And at the end of the third try, whether you did well enough or not, it'll show you what the real mean and standard deviation were. So sometimes, just out of curiosity, you want to see that. Alright, I'm going to just go ahead and play this another time or two, so hopefully that'll help you get the feel for this. A lot of times people do get frustrated if they don't understand how this works. So I'm going to click New, and the first thing I'm going to think about is the mean. The peak seems to be almost on this line for -6. Maybe it's a tiny bit to the right, so maybe that's like -5.95 or something. It's basically -6, but it looks like it's just a tiny bit to the right. So I'll check that. And then this curve is taller than the purple one. So remember, the purple one has a standard deviation of 1. if I thought the red one was twice as tall, I would make it half as wide and do a 0.5. But twice as tall would be like up here. So it's a little bit taller, which means it's a little bit narrower. So instead of a standard deviation of 1, maybe it's like 0.8. That's kind of just a guess, but I can adjust it, so I don't worry about getting it right on the nose. What I definitely want to think about is this is narrower and taller, so it has a smaller standard deviation than the purple one, which has a standard deviation of 1. So a little narrow, a little smaller number to make this a little narrow, therefore a little taller. So we click guess, and they're already telling us good job. I don't know if I agree because I see a lot of a gap there. I think I may have made a mistake doing the negative 5.95 because my graph looks a little bit to the right. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and change that to a negative 6. But I definitely need to get taller, which means I have to go narrower. We're looking at the green graph trying to make it match the red. So it needs to go up higher, which really means it needs to be narrower. So narrower means a smaller standard deviation. Not a big change. I'll just try 7.5 and see what that happens. It's already a good job, right? So just trying to make it a little better. And when I did that, it still says nice job. And the left-right alignment looks real good. But the green is now over the top. This is closer than before. So when I used a 0.75, it was too high. 0.8 was too low, but this is closer. So maybe 0.76 will make the green curve a tiny bit wider, which will drop it down a little and maybe a better match. And now this is what you really want, where you can't really tell much of a difference between the two, and it showed me the answers. So it looks like I was kind of right about this being to the right of negative 6, but not as far as I thought. We were being told nice job the whole way, so we were never off by too much, and our standard deviation is a pretty good match. I think that's good enough. You've seen one that was shorter and wider, and now you've seen one that is taller and narrower, and seen how I dealt with both of those options. And you just need to get it to tell you nice job once, and then do the Alt print screen to capture. If I did that here, the Alt probably won't make the graph disappear because we've already kind of got that glitch out of the system. Let me click Alt and see what happens. Yeah, it stays okay this time. But always make sure when you're doing your screen captures in the stat sims that it's not Alt print screen. It's Alt is the graph still there, print screen. And if the graph does disappear, just click refresh and it will come back. Alright, I hope that helps you and avoids any frustration, gets you some quicker, nice matches. Alright, good luck with this.